I don't want anybody to hear that. And I'm not beating these guys up. Matter of fact, there was a guy at our last church revitalization meeting. He said, I've led 3 people to Christ, but they all went back to a different church to be baptized. And I do think that happens. We have pastors that lead people to faith in Christ, and they may not be baptized. But we've got to do evangelism in a way that grows a church, do we not? And that starts with you, pastor, being an evangelist and finding ways for you to connect outside the church walls with lost people. I've got some suggestions for that. But the second step is the evangelism through the pulpit. That's why I talked to you about that earlier, about understanding. Every Sunday you preach to lost people. Every Sunday you preach to lost people. And I don't mean that every Sunday you've got a guest. There are people who have been there 20 years that are lost. And so when you start putting together a strategy, you talk about now how am I doing evangelism as a pastor? How am I doing it from the pulpit? Now, not just from the pulpit, but I talk about through the pulpit. If your youth ministry or children's ministry is going to be evangelistic, it won't be that way unless the pastor holds people accountable and teaches them. All right? When you have youth events, when you have Vacation Bible School or you have a children's event, how the gospel is presented, how the invitation is offered, and how those people are followed up is absolutely your business, Pastor. And I'm going to tell you from personal experience in churches I've served, most of the lay folks aren't concerned about that. They're concerned about, do we have enough crackers and juice, or do we have enough money to do the event and all that kind of stuff. Who's got to worry about it? You. So it's not just from the pulpit, it's through the pulpit. I was pastor for 7 years. I'm trying to think. I know I probably had the opportunity to baptize somewhere around 150 to 200 people in those 7 years. All right? I'm just being conservative, all right, with that. 150 so. And I bet you there's not 2 of them that I didn't meet with individually to make sure that they were saved. I don't baptize people unless they talk to me about what it means to be a Christian. I don't care if they're 108, or I don't care if they're 8. So, once again, through the pulpit, through the office of pastor, how you do evangelism matters, okay? And so they come down, and then we schedule an appointment. You come into my office, I'm not in a hurry. If they're saved, they're going to go to heaven if something happens, aren't they? Baptism doesn't save anybody, so I'm not in a hurry to baptize you. I am in a hurry to meet with you and make sure that your salvation is proper. All right? You're not joining a club. All right. So we talk about that. And your church needs a strategy for doing that. Then first impressions. What kind of impression do you make on your guests when they come to your church? Do they have a good impression or a bad impression? Are they friendly? Do they know what's happening? There are a lot of, we have language in church that's unique to us. People that didn't grow up in church maybe don't know it. You know, there was a time, and I used to joke about this because we moved around a lot when I was a kid, but it didn't matter. We did the same thing at every church I ever went to. You know, the offering was at the same time. We sang 3 hymns. We had special music, and we had a sermon. I mean, it was just, but if you didn't grow up in church, you don't know when to stand up and when to sing. And because I've traveled and preached at a lot of churches, one of the things that freaks me out is I'll go to a church, and they won't have it in the bulletin, but like at the end of the service, they'll all hold hands and sing the song. And they don't even put the words in the bulletin or up. Well, you want to make me feel like an alien. I love Jesus, and I came to preach, but I don't know your song, all right? So we do things that leave a bad impression on people. When we don't take time to get to know people, when we don't take time to greet people in the service. So it matters. And you say, Terry, how is that important? Let me tell you how that's important. If people have a bad impression of your church, then you've lost the right to share the gospel with them. The church that I went and pastored in Alabama, I started the first day of October. I think it was the Sunday. It was either October the 1st or 2nd. It was the first Sunday in October, and it was after Christmas before I had somebody fill out a guest card. We had a bad reputation. Church gone through a bad time. And when I went and followed up, I had a lady tell me that was the coldest, most unfriendly church that she had ever visited, and that she would never be back. It was really hard on me as a pastor, but how many of you think I had a chance to share the gospel after that? I dare you to share the gospel after that. We earn the right to share the gospel by making them feel like they're loved and wanted at our church. So it's important the kind of impression we make on people that visit our church or any event that we do. Okay? Those things matter. And you know what's funny is our church people think they're friendly. Well, they are because they know everybody. Now, I don't know if y'all will appreciate this or not, but when I train churches on this first impression stuff, a lot of us, we've been to church together for years and years and years. We know when each other had hip surgery and when we lost our kidney and all that kind of stuff, when our children got married and all those kind of things that happened. And we're like a family, right? And that's a good thing. Well, if you want to know what it's like to be a guest in a church like that, this is how you figure it out. Go to a state park and find a group of people that are having a family reunion, and you try to go act like you're part of their family. That's what it's like coming to some of our churches. Now, what's really bad is when all those people have on their t-shirt. If they have on their t-shirt, and maybe they don't look like us or like the things that we do, how hard is it for me to feel like I'm a part of that? We do that to people, y'all. And if we don't take time to make them feel welcome, if we don't take time to learn their name, thank them for coming, find a way that we can love and minister and pray for them, then we've lost a good opportunity to make sure that they're saved, and maybe lost an opportunity to see a member come in. So, guys, don't take that first impression stuff lightly. It's a big deal, okay? The next thing that we do are come and see events and ministries. All right? Now, you don't have to write any of this down. I got all this for you written down. I don't care if some of you write it because you remember it better if you write it, but I've got this for you. And I'm going to share it with you in just a minute because I'm hoping that it'll get you to ask some questions. Come and see events are events that we do at the church where we tell people, hey, we want you to come and participate. We're going to minister to you. We're going to meet a need that you have. And because we love Jesus, we're going to tell you about Jesus. Your Sunday morning worship service is a come and see event, isn't it? I mean, don't you invite people? Don't your church members invite people to come? Sunday school, some of you have good Bible study going on. Any of you ever do revival, put a poster up, bring a special speaker in, invite the community to come in? So we do these things, and if we do them well, and we share the gospel, we'll see people come. All right, but here's one of the problems. We already talked about this, is people have quit coming, hadn't they? Even our Christians don't even come sometimes. But even our lost people especially, they don't feel an obligation to go to church. I don't care who you bring in. You can bring in Fred Luter, former Southern Baptist Convention president, to your church. They're not going to come hear him. They don't care. So if all of our strategy that we've talked about so far happens on the property, doesn't that explain why we're not baptizing as many people as we need to? Amen. I mean, look, one of the worst things we can do is limit evangelism to the brick and the parking lot. So what we've got to do is make some of these come and see events what we call go and tell events. Now, some of the same things that you do at your church can be done with just a few things differently off-site in a place where people will come or at least will be exposed to what you're doing. Does that make sense? We call this the go and tell events and ministries. Just so that I'm practical, let me give you an example. Does anybody in here give food or clothes away as a ministry? Okay, some of y'all do that, all right? It's a great ministry. How many, do they come to your church to do it? Okay, a lot of our churches, they host the food pantry at the church. You come to the church and you say, hey, I need some help. And what we do is we get you to fill out a form. We take you to a room, we pray with you, we ask if you know Jesus, we share the gospel with you, and whether you accept Christ or not, we're going to give you some food or some clothes. Is that kind of how y'all's works? Now, in most of our churches, those are come and see ministries. You have to come to my church, or at least contact my church, right? If I want to make that a go and tell ministry, I could buy an old bread truck, put the food and the clothes in that bread truck. I could drive into a neighborhood. I get out of my car, get out of that van. Two of us go to the door and knock on the door and say, hey, we're from so-and-so Baptist Church. We're from Mount Zion Baptist Church. We want you to know that not only does Jesus love you, but we love you. Is there any way that we can minister to you today? How many mouths do you have to feed? Could you use some clean sheets for your bed? They don't have to come to me. And then when they say, you know what, I've got five people living with me, and it's hard to make ends meet. If you could help me with some food, I'd appreciate it. Well, sure, Miss Johnson, come right around here to the van. So we pick out our food and we sit down and then we say, Miss Johnson, we're glad that we could help you with this, but could I just take a few moments to tell you why we're doing this? And I talk to them about Jesus. They don't have to come to me. I'm going to them. Some of the preaching events and things that you do, just move them off site. You know what? There's nothing like a little music to gather a crowd. So get that music outside the brick walls, guys. When you do children's ministry events, when you do things to attract youth, don't do them all at your church. There are people who are not going to come to your church. Now you have to do some things differently when you move them off-site. Security is more important off-site than it is on-site, isn't it? I mean, it's your building, you're in control. You go to a park or a school. Y'all are familiar with Vacation Bible School? How many of you do VB at Vacation Bible School? What if you did it? What if you did it at a school or a city park instead of doing it at your church? Or do both. I don't say quit doing the come and see events, but your teachers are already trained. They've already done it. Why not pick a school or a city park and do a 2-day VBS? They've already taught the material. They already know the crafts, the snacks, all that kind of stuff. You go around door to door, invite people to come. They don't have to go all the way to the church. They go right there where they're from. So you see what I'm talking about? I mean, just a little bit of change. A come and see event to a go and tell. Yes, sir. Go ahead and pass those out, Dave.
When I was a youth pastor in Zion, West Tennessee, we would have backyard
Bible clubs. Mm-hmm.
And this was citywide.
Yes, sir.
And in one session, there was over 500 people that were saved.
And 500 people saved in one session. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I was when I was a college and high school kid in West Monroe, I was a member of a large church, and they would hire about a dozen junior high, high school, college kids to be an intern. We would help with Vacation Bible School at the church. We would help with some of the day camps that they did. But we did mission Vacation Bible Schools, and we would go to the schools, and there would be some that would go out a week ahead of time. We'd do like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and we would show up with popcorn and snow cone and Kool-Aids and BB guns and bows and arrows. We really did, y'all. Now, I don't know if I would recommend that today, but I'm just telling you, we did. And we had, so, you know, they would split the groups up. 10 would come to me, and we'd shoot bow and arrows. 10 would be at snack. 10 would be doing recreation. And 10 would be at Bible study. And so we would rotate them through, and they would get a Bible study and a gospel presentation every day. And we saw hundreds of kids saved. And we had relationships with pastors in the area that were local around those cities and those parks. And we would give those names to the churches that were local. But just tremendous what we can do when we move off of our own campus and take Jesus to the street.
Yeah, because we're so holy in the house, but as you say, you know, how do you stay bottled up and then expect something to happen?
That's what we're doing. That's right. When they do show up, we're speaking our language. Yeah. Now, the last stage is to have the DNA of your church be thoroughly evangelistic. I've never passed. I wasn't able to lead my church to be that. I don't know a lot of churches that are, but I have seen some that are like this, and evangelism drives everything they do. I call it a ski boat effect. You know, everybody's hanging on, evangelism's out front, and everything gets pulled behind the boat, you know. And that's, I know some churches that were in the area where I served in Alabama that were thoroughly evangelistic. Everything they did was designed to be evangelistic, and if it wasn't evangelistic, they didn't do it.
That was like Bellevue Baptist in Memphis. Their church is evangelistic.
Absolutely.
Reverend Brooks,
Love Memphis.
don't you remember Reverend Clark?
Yeah.
Don't you remember when that church burned down?
Yeah.
When that church burned down, Dr. Rogers invited him over to a Sunday evening service. And then when he came to the service, they presented him with a $30,000 check
To help rebuild.
his church.
Yeah.
And,
But
and you know, a lot of people don't realize but when people see that you care about one another, that helps to open eyes in the community.
Yeah.
But when you in a community and the churches in the community don't work together for the common cause, when it becomes just all about my church.
We just looking like what he said. We just like a club. People see us go in and we come out.
And they don't want to be a member of another club, do they?
Y'all just go in there and we hear y'all hear music banging and hear y'all in there singing. Then y'all come out and get in these cars and go your separate ways.
Yep.
It's a club. I mean, we have become like clubs.
Yeah.
See, our buildings are so well insulated until the music ain't.
Instead of taking it out, like
Yeah.
going to where need is.
You know, when I talk to folks about church and relationships, think about all these guys that are in bars every Saturday. You know, there's a lot of them. I mean, and what'll happen is if they don't show up on a Saturday at the bar Saturday night, Fred's going to call them Sunday. Say, man, you should have been there. You should have seen what happened. They're more like a church than we are. They miss each other when they're gone. They call and make sure they're up on everything that's going on. And our folks, they'll come to church, they'll show up, and then they shut up and leave.
they meet religiously.
Yeah, they do.
And they are always on time.
And they
Yeah.
share.
And they share. They know each other's name. They care when they're not there. I'm telling you guys, bars do a better job keeping up with people than churches do sometimes.
And they share with one another.
Yeah.
You got almost fight to get a church van.
You remember back in the days when they
You don't wanna get them involved.
the clubs had members only on the back of their jackets. That was the church become members only.
Members only.
You know, they not going on the outside of it. If you don't come to the church, it's only members only. It's going into the church. So like you said, they members only don't communicate with nobody else but the ones that are in church, that what church have.
That's right.
But, you know, back to what you was talking about, you know, like the band or showing up, you know, with the youth groups. What's the balance of the message versus bringing in the stuff, the food, or the games and all? What's the balance?
Great question. Great question. He's talking about balance in basically entertaining versus preaching. All right, now, let me raise this just a second.
Because I think a lot of times we just show, we just give. And think it's
Black out
automatic.
button on
Yeah, on the, okay. All right. The more I'm here, the more I'm entertaining. The more I'm here, the more meat I'm giving them. So it depends on the purpose of my event. If I'm out in public, it's the first time I've been to this community or this area. You know, it doesn't mean I don't share the gospel, but I'm going to have more blind people there and more people that are aware. So I'm going to meet more need. There is going to be food there. I'm going to make sure we've got food. There's going to be some entertainment. There's going to be some things going on for them to do. Like a fall festival, safe place to trick or treat. You know, just a safe place for the kids to come. I'm not going to get up and preach for an hour. I'm going to let the kids trick or treat. You know, but I am going to share the gospel sometime. The more that I know my crowd looks like people who are engaged or convinced, the more meat I'm going to give them and the less emphasis on the food and the fun.
That's when you gauge it.
That's the way you gauge it to your crowd.
That's what he's talking about, discernment.
And even in the church, this is why I say, talking about your kids, I do this with my church budget when I was pastor. Discipleship stuff, where we're growing leaders, I put a lot more money in that. Fun stuff that's trying to attract people, like trips to Six Flags or Magic Springs, I don't put a lot of church money in that. They're going to pay for that. When I'm sending them on a mission trip and they're going out and they're sharing the gospel, I'm going to put more money in that. I'm not going to make a kid pay $200 to do that. Me and my church are going to raise some money and we're going to invest in these people and let them grow in maturity in their Lord. These people just want to go have fun at Magic Springs. I'm not going to ask that widow to give me another $10. You know, we'll wash cars, we'll mow yards, we'll rake, we'll do whatever. We'll help them get some money, but I'm not going to invest in this. So when youth minister and children's minister and all those things, this is what we used. The more leadership oriented it is, the more money the church puts in. The more fun it is, the less money. Does that make sense to you?
Make a whole lot of sense.
But same thing here. This is more fun. Remember, Jesus healed him before he ever told him who he was, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yes, he did.
Now, I gave you a full color handout that breaks down some of this a little bit more, and I've even got that expanded into a document that's a couple of pages for you to take back. Take some of those to the back for me, or that side. I'll let. I know it's just in a format to try to help communicate it. It may not be anything new to you, okay? But when you start talking about bringing your lay leaders along, I want to put a tool in your hand to help you with this discussion. Because it's not just the pastor that needs to know this, right? We got to help our people know this, especially our leaders. If our leaders don't stand behind us and understand why we're doing what we're doing, then what we end up doing is we try to end up oiling every squeaky wheel in the church. And, you know, we end up doing things that some people want to do, but what they really are meaning is they want the pastor to do it. So the more leaders you get to buy into your strategy, the easier it is for you to keep your church focused on those things. If not, they come to you with all these other things they want to do. They're all good stuff, but they may not be what you need to be doing. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to turn it over to Dave to close this, but I just want you to know that I love you. I pray that God shows up every Sunday when you preach. I pray that He shows up every time you study your Bible, that you're teaching from the overflow of what God's doing in your life. I'm praying for revival in Arkansas. I pray it starts in your church. I pray it starts in your church. It ain't about me. It's not about the Arkansas Baptist State Convention. It's about the bride of Christ, the church. Isn't it? And so anything we can do to serve you guys, to see your church grow, we want to be a part of that, and we want to help you. Real quick, my name is Terry Bostick, Terrybostic. Tell you what, I'm just going to write it. It'd be because I didn't bring any cards. I'm sorry. I might have some in my truck, but I didn't. I'll be there. Just give me a couple of months lead time, okay? I got a church. If you would like me to come, there's a chance I have a Sunday open, but most of the time I stay booked 5-6 months out. And it's not. I just do. We just do. We'll have churches call us and ask us to do stuff. So let me give you my cell number. Arkansas Baptist State Convention pays for it. So I answer it. If I don't answer it, it's because I'm sleeping or I'm talking to somebody face to face, more than likely, okay? There you go. Hey, and don't, if you preach that sermon, you tell me before I get there, okay? Two things going to happen. Either one, I'm going to get my feelings hurt because you preached it better than I did. Or number two, they're going to look at me and look at you and say, now, where'd you get that, preacher? So just give me a heads up, all right? Don't preach that sermon. Is that fair? That's right. Dave, why don't you